When we made videos about the canine and feline family trees and released these accompanying beautiful posters, one follow-up request rose to the top: apes. Hi, I'm David, and this is Planet of the Apes. Apes split off from monkeys around 25 to 30 million years ago. The simplest way to tell the difference between apes and monkeys is that apes are generally bigger and don't have tails, but there are a few exceptions. This is an ape, and so is this, and so is this. And so are all of these beautiful primates. And hey, we are all apes too. And in this video, I'm going to take you on a tour of all of your cousins and show off the poster we made to celebrate them. Okay, let's start off with a few of our favorite extinct apes. The largest ape to ever exist was Gigantopithecus, a 10-foot tall, half-ton behemoth who lived in the forests of southern China until around 300,000 years ago. You're going to hear about a lot of pithecuses in this video, by the way, since it's a root term that basically means primate. Despite its, well, giganticness, Gigantopithecus was likely a pretty chill vegetarian that spent most of its time gnawing on bamboo. One of the strangest extinct apes to ever exist was Oreopithecus, who developed some really weird adaptations while living on a predator-free island in the Mediterranean 6 to 8 million years ago. First off, it had flat feet and short, robust legs, probably because it spent a lot of the time out in the open walking around on 2 feet, about 4 million years before any other ape did. Second, it had incredibly long arms, which helped it reach into mucky bogs and grab its favorite food, swamp grass. Let's go back a little farther in time, 25 million years ago, to meet Rukwapithecus. It was tiny, barely 5 kilos, and it lived in the woodlands of what is now Tanzania. But the researchers who found its fossils realized that it was a long missing link between monkeys and people. In other words, it was one of the very first apes. So let's go through Rukwapithecus's living relatives, the current ape family tree. There are 2 branches, the great apes, which are bigger, and the lesser apes, which are smaller. You'll notice there are way more lesser ape species than great ape species. That's because, for reasons scientists don't really understand yet, the lesser apes are super prone to chromosome rearrangements, which means that when a population splinters from the main group, it often evolves a new number of chromosomes, making it unable to interbreed with the species it came from. Okay, let's start with the lesser apes. The Lar gibbon, which lives mostly in Thailand, is the gibbon you are probably most familiar with, as it's the most common one in zoos. And it's a crooner. Every morning, mating pairs sing duets to one another across the forest. Recently, researchers learned that these songs don't just serve as a love language, they also include info about predators in the area. The agile gibbon and the Bornean white-bearded gibbon are some of the best athletes in the ape family. When these gibbons swing through the trees, they can reach speeds of up to 55 kilometers per hour as they move between the branches, and they can leap more than 15 meters. That's the length of a semi-trailer. There are lots of other similar-looking gibbons on this branch, like the 3 different types of gray gibbons that live in Borneo, and Klaus's gibbons that live on the Mentawai Islands off the west coast of Sumatra, and the silvery gibbons that live on the island of Java. In some gibbon species, the males and the females look totally different. Take the pileated gibbons of Thailand and Cambodia. Male pileated gibbons are black with a ring around their face, while females are tan with a black face and chest. In most species of Hulak gibbons, which live farther north in India and China, the males are black with white eyebrows, while the females are light brown with a darker face. One species, the Skywalker Hulak gibbon, was only discovered by scientists 10 years ago, making it the most recent addition to the entire tree. And yes, those researchers were massive Star Wars nerds. Now, let's check out this bough of the gibbon branch of the tree, the crested gibbons, which are called that because it looks like they've got these little mohawks on top of their heads. The 3 crested gibbon species, the black crested gibbon, the eastern black crested gibbon, and the Hainan black crested gibbon, all live in northern Vietnam or China. While all other gibbons live in pairs, the crested gibbons are a little laxer about this whole monogamy thing, and sometimes live in one male, multi-female groups. The Hainan black-crested gibbon is likely the most endangered primate in the world. Thanks to deforestation, there are fewer than 50 of them left in the wild. Then there are the cheeked gibbons, known for the cool facial ruffs that both the males and the females sport. The northern buffed-cheeked gibbon, the southern white-cheeked gibbon, the northern white-cheeked gibbon, and the yellow-cheeked gibbon all stay high up in the canopy of the forests of Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, likely to keep away from the clouded leopards and pythons that patrol the lower branches. Finally, there's the last bough of the lesser ape branch, which contains only one member, the Saimang. The Saimang, which lives in Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia, is by far the biggest of the lesser apes. At up to 15 kilos, it's twice the size of the others. In addition, it has an inflatable throat sac that it uses to magnify its songs across the forests. That's all the lesser apes, gibbon or take a few. Alright, now let's head on over to the other side of the tree, the great apes. The great ape that we're least related to is the orangutan, which gets its name from the Malay words for forest and person. The Bornean orangutan was made famous by Birute Galdikas, who has been studying these solitary animals for more than 50 years. Male Bornean orangs, at least the bigger dominant ones, develop distinctive wide facial plates and regularly come down to the ground to eat fallen fruit, while the less dominant males and the females stay protected up in the trees. The Sumatran orangutan is less likely to come to the ground to eat, probably because there are lots of hungry tigers around. The Tapanuli orangutan also lives in Sumatra, but just in one tiny isolated corner. It's a little bit paler than the Sumatran one. It's also the rarest great ape. There are likely less than 1,000 of them. Okay, let's get into the gorillas. Most Western gorillas live in the lowland rainforests of the Republic of Congo and live in groups of several females and one dominant male, who's called a silverback. These gorillas weigh up to 100 kilos, and they're pretty clever. They've been seen using sticks to measure the depths of streams before they try to cross them. Eastern gorillas live in Rwanda, Uganda, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. The most famous eastern gorillas are the mountain gorillas, made famous by primatologist Dian Fossey. They are huge. Silverback males can weigh more than 200 kilograms, but are known as peaceful giants who tolerate the presence of humans. In fact, mountain gorilla tourism is a giant business. It generates more than $60 million a year. Ooh, now we're getting somewhere. We've arrived at our closest living relatives, the bonobos and chimpanzees, who diverged from us humans just 5 or so million years ago. Bonobos and chimps split off from one another just over 1 million years ago, thanks to the widening Congo River, which split the two groups apart. We made a whole video about that. Because the bonobos didn't have to compete with gorillas for food, they ended up peaceful and relatively bohemian, settling most of their disputes with, snuggles. The most famous bonobo was Kanzi, who wowed researchers by quickly learning to use a modified form of language to communicate complex ideas. He was also an avid gamer. He especially liked playing Minecraft. Unlike the hippie bonobos, chimpanzees have no qualms about resorting to violence. The group I used to study in Uganda would regularly go out on patrols, looking for males from other groups to beat up, or even kill. Chimps also have intricate cultural traditions that they would pass down from one generation to another. Primatologist Jane Goodall found that chimp moms would teach their children how to fashion twigs in just the right way to successfully fish for termites. Before we get to the last remaining living ape, humans, let's talk about what happened way back when, after the human and chimp lineages split. One of the first hominids to walk upright was Australopithecus afarensis. Hey, there's that Pithecus root again. The most well-known Australopithecine is Lucy, who was named after the Beatles song that the scientists played on repeat while she was excavated from a valley in Ethiopia. Lucy and her relatives were pretty small, around 4 feet tall, and mostly ate fruit, seeds, and roots. About 2.5 million years ago, Homo habilis evolved in eastern and southern Africa. They were bigger than the Australopithecines and were the first hominids to make basic stone tools. There's evidence that Homo habilis was a scavenger. It would scare off hyenas and lions from kills, and then use those stone tools to hack off meat and bones to munch on. Then, about 2 million years ago, not too long before Homo habilis went extinct, Homo erectus evolved. Erectus basically looked like a modern human, with long legs capable of walking extremely long distances. It was the first hominid to make its way out of Africa and into Asia and Europe. Erectus was also the first hominid to learn how to make fire and to take down big animals by themselves. Modern Homo sapiens likely evolved from a branch of the Homo erectus tree, but our species wasn't the only human species to split off. In fact, around a couple 100,000 years ago, Homo sapiens shared the Earth with several other human species, not to mention the bands of Homo erectus that were still around. Let's meet our neighbors. The other human species you're probably most familiar with is the Neanderthals. You've probably heard about how big and strong they were, and they needed to be in order to survive the cold in northern Europe and to hunt down the woolly mammoths that made up most of their diet. They also painted the caves where they live. At the same time, the Denisovans ranged across Asia and a little bit of Europe. They were as big as the Neanderthals, but looked a little different, likely because they evolved adaptations to help them live high up in the mountains. They also liked making jewelry and bracelets. There's evidence that the Denisovans and the Neanderthals occasionally overlapped. In fact, at one cave in Siberia, researchers found a human with DNA that showed she had a Denisovan father and a Neanderthal mother. Homo heidelbergensis lived in southern Europe around this same time. They were likely taller than the other groups of humans living around, and also relied on hunting big game for food. Heidelbergensis specialized in taking down the straight-tusked elephants that lived in that area. At around the same time, there was also a species of tiny humans, Homo floresiensis, that lived on an isolated island in Indonesia. Despite being only 3.5 feet tall, these islanders were able to successfully hunt the local elephants, which were also pretty small due to the phenomenon of island dwarfism. Homo floresiensis thrived by themselves for 100,000 years. And less than a decade ago, researchers in the Philippines found yet another human species, Homo luzonensis, that also likely lived around the same time. Like Homo floresiensis, luzonensis was tiny, but unlike any other human species, there's evidence that luzonensis became more arboreal again. Their curved hand bones indicate they spent a bunch of time in the trees, perhaps gathering fruit and raiding bird nests. And finally, at the very same time that those 6 other species existed, all around Africa, there were small bands of Homo sapiens, which looked pretty much exactly like modern humans. Over the next couple 100,000 years, as our species spread all over the world, we became more capable of complex language and thought. Our social networks grew, allowing us to pass new skills and tradition down across generations. And as the rest of the human species either died off or interbred with us, Homo sapiens became the last humans in existence, and the only ape that's capable of making a video and a beautiful poster about apes. Okay, so about that ape poster. It was painstakingly drawn in amazing detail by our wonderful illustrator Homo sapiens here at MinuteEarth, and it would look fantastic on the wall of your house or your classroom. To get one, click on the link in the description, and if you buy it in a bundle with our dog and cat taxonomy posters, you'll get 20% off. Thank you, and thanks for supporting MinuteEarth.